Hey, everybody. Really excited to do this YouTube live this week. I'm gonna be talking all about how you guys can get billion-dollar clients. I've actually been lucky enough to land a few whales, if you will, over the last few years. And there is a process to it. And I think the biggest thing that people tend to struggle with when it comes to landing these billion-dollar clients is actually just knowing exactly what to do when the opportunity arises to work with a large company. And the biggest issue that I see with people being unprepared is they think that they have to do something differently to land a large company as opposed to what they're doing for their smaller companies. The thing is that for the most part, you don't actually need to change much up. And I'll tell you why. Basically, when you're working with the smaller business, they, obviously a lot of times you're dealing with the founder, the co-founder, maybe even the head of marketing, right? And so they're constantly interested in growth and revenue and they want the best, thing possible, right? So they're always going to be pushing you to do more and more and more and more. However, with enterprises and large businesses, actually it's kind of the opposite. These businesses usually when you're working with one of them, you're dealing with somebody that's in the HR department, the marketing department. They're not going to be your main people that are running the business. It's actually usually their subsidiaries and or their team members. And so what you want to focus on is delivering a product that you can do repeatably over and over again that doesn't change. And because of that repetition, because everything stays constant, then what you can do is you can over deliver. Because those people who are not the CEOs or the founders, what they really want in these large companies, these billion-dollar companies, is they really want to keep their job, right? The CEO and the entrepreneur, they want to innovate, but the people who run the head of marketing and everything like that, they want to keep their job. So they're scared of things that you might do that cause too much disruption or put too much attention on them. Because if there's too much negative attention within the company about the work that that person is doing, they could lose their job pretty easily. And so you ultimately want to think about it that way. And you want to consider whether or not what you're doing when it comes to making sure that there's the right kind of work being delivered, that you have a good product, is you don't necessarily want to go too big too fast. So let's say you sell a product for $5,000 per month. It can be really tempting when you're talking to an enterprise to say, hey, I'm going to go try to sell this customer for $50,000 per month right away. Like I'm just going to go right to that number. And the problem with that is when you do that, you actually might scare them away in certain situations because they might have just been looking for something very quick and very easy, because even enterprises purchase tools for, $19 per month, $50 per month. Like they purchase low end software tools. So it's not like every purchase they always make is in the $50,000 range or 100,000 or $1 million range. A lot of times it's smaller, right? And because it's smaller, you actually have to deliver something very good that fits in a nice, easy box that can be then scaled up 10, 20, 100 times, because then they might come back to you after, let's say, 5 months of working together. They might say, hey, we love this. We've been talking about this in our division. We'd love to scale this up 5, 10 times. Can you guys give me a proposal for $50,000 per month? And when that happens, then you can actually deliver on those bigger customers. And so the other thing to think about when it comes to landing sort of enterprises or billion-dollar clients is you want to focus on having a really good lead magnet, but it has to be better than the lead magnet that you are using to close the smaller clients. So for instance, if you know that an enterprise over the course of their lifetime will pay you $100,000 or $1 million, typically what you're going to want to do is you're going to spend up to 10% of that CAC on marketing. So what you want to do is you want to take whatever 10% of your LTV is. So let's say your LTV is, let's just for sake of argument, use a round number, $100,000. Let's say that's the case. It's $100,000, which is actually kind of small for an enterprise. But let's say it's $100,000. Now take 10% of that, which is $10,000, and essentially assume that if it's $10,000, let's say it takes you 5 conversations with a enterprise client to get one customer, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to divide that $10,000 by 5. And that's the amount of money you can spend on a lead magnet to get somebody interested in you. Now, the real magic is when you can spend or you can deliver something that's worth $2,000 to an enterprise for even cheaper than $2,000. So you can deliver something to an enterprise that is worth something they would pay $2,000 for, but it costs you basically nothing. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So you recently interviewed a company called Scorpion, and they scaled their agency from $20 million ARR to $150 million ARR. And what they told me was that they used to send out cookies, or they still do. They send out cookies to lawyers because lawyers are their main demographic for SEO. And those cookies were really good. And they put a lot of effort into making those cookies or purchasing those cookies. They're actually like really nice. They had a really nice note and everything. And that was the introduction of Scorpion to that law firm. And so what happened is the law firm would then see the cookies and they'd be like, wow, this is unique. This is different. This is really, really interesting. And so because of that, it gets the person who's consuming that cookie to think positively about Scorpion. And then what they did is after they consumed the cookie, they would send in a sales team to then go get a meeting with Scorpion, because human beings, we feel like we're forced to reciprocate, right? We feel like we have to give back in some way, shape, or form. And so ultimately, if you think of things in that way and you think, okay, how can I actually get people to want to work with me and want to like what I do by delivering value? A cookie is a lot less than $2,000, right? But the value they're providing in their minds, because there was nobody else delivering this kind of value in this way, and there's no one else trying to make this kind of an impression. The value was extremely high to the legal teams, who really valued really good relationships, because the way a lot of these legal company works or law firms work is they want to put they want to promote good relationships. They want to have good relationships. They probably work off relationships. So when you lead with something like a cookie, you're starting off with what they want and what they value more than anything else, which is a really good relationship. And so this can basically apply to anything you do. Now, one of the keys that you want to think through when it comes to coming up with your lead magnet or your value prop you want to give away for free is basically, what can you do inside of your when you cold call somebody, right? If you're cold calling them with your lead magnet offer and everybody who you call is basically saying, don't call me again, I don't like this, etc., that means the value of what you're providing is too low, right? So you need to increase the value of what you're providing, not in terms of the services that you're offering, but in terms of what you're willing to give away for free, right? And sometimes the thing that you're willing to give away for free is not actually what they find valuable. So for instance, if they're not willing to pay for something with their time or money that you're giving them for free, then it's not a good lead magnet. So for example, one of my lead magnets I do very well is a sales cast. So it's a podcast that's also a sales cast. So it's like a selling process as well. So you get them on the show, and then on the actual podcast form, when they book a meeting with you, it says, are you interested in learning X, Y, or Z? It takes about 5 minutes. And that's the pitch. They'll then say yes, maybe, or no. And if they say yes, that means you literally have a sales call, right? And so it's much easier to get people to hop on an interview with you than it is to try to sell them on your service. And so when you think about it, let's say you message 100 people, you get one person to say yes, right? Then if that happens, you're basically in a situation where you're getting 1 out of 100. But let's assume that you can get 50 people to say yes instead of 1, right? Now you have 50 times more people saying yes. And then on top of that, if 70% of those people say they're interested in the offer that you have inside your booking form, now you're up to a much higher percentage in terms of people that are actually booking meetings. So you may go from, let's say it's 1 meeting booked, you might go all the way up to 30 meetings booked, right? And that's a huge, substantial difference, right? So I would just keep that in mind. Now, I do see one person is live. I know a lot of people watch these after. If you want to ask any questions, feel free. And also, if you're watching this after the fact, I do respond to these comments. So if you have any questions about how to land enterprise customers, feel free to just comment below and I'll actually answer them as quickly as I possibly can, right? So feel free to do that. And if you don't know who I am, if this is the first time you're new to the channel, I was able to grow my agency to $200,000 per month in sales. The agency is called Twiz.io. We built a software product on top of it. And so what you see on the website is actually a combination of those two things when you go to our site. So anyways, this is essentially it in a nutshell. There isn't much more to go into when it comes to landing enterprise clients. I'll be around in the comments section below. So feel free to ask me anything. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer. I'm here to be of help, here to be of service. So feel free to shoot some my way and I'll get some questions answered for you. Now, we do these every Wednesday at 1 p.m. PST, and it's usually a debrief after my AMA that I do on Twitter at 12 p.m. PST. So you can always come to these after, or you could just comment anytime you want. But I hope that these two strategies when it comes to getting these enterprise clients can help you grow and scale fast, right? And at the end of the day, the reason people go for enterprise clients, the reason people want enterprise clients is because enterprise clients are typically better clients because they're able to stay around for longer. They have less cash constraints, and they usually, not always, but usually are a lot just easier to work with on all areas, right? Again, usually when you're working with founders and CEOs, they tend to try to really push the issue on different things. Whereas, but not always, but whereas marketing directors or VPs of marketing and things like that, they tend to be a little bit more laid back. The only difference in this is they may not push so much for revenue, but they will push a lot more for things being tidy and having really good product delivery because they're worried about what the people inside their company think about them, right? So you need to keep that in mind when you're building out these programs and these offers and things of that nature. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And I really appreciate all of you. If you do have any questions, just put it in the chat box below and I will do my best to answer. I will get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. Thank you all so much. Peace.